NFL insider Adam Caplan. You can follow him on Twitter at Caplan NFL. That's Caplan with a C. Is here to break it all down with us. Eagles and Rams. Adam, which, boy, when the schedule came out in April, I'm sure this wasn't the highlight of Week 14 schedule, was it?
No, it wasn't, Mike, and good to talk to you. I'm out in Los Angeles. No, it wasn't for anyone because, quite frankly, I think if we're being honest here, we expected the Eagles to be improved from the 7-9 record last season. I picked them to be 9-7, and I thought the Rams could be maybe a 5 or 6 win team, 7 if they really max it out. I knew the coaching would be better. That was abundantly clear with Sean McVay as the head coach being the play caller, but no one saw this. And the fact that they are, in my power rankings, I use each week just to give an overview of kind of where teams are. I have the Rams as the number 4 team in the National Football League. The Eagles is 3. The Rams at only a game back of the Eagles at 9-3. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is what we loved about the National Football League. We never really know what's going to happen before the season.
So what is it about the Rams that you look at them as a top 5 team? Obviously, some people wonder if we should take them serious. You know, they've been down rotten for years and years and years. They just kind of came out of the blue. So what is it about them that you look at them as a top 5 team, which would make them a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Right. So, Mike, when you really look at their situation, first of all, they had a good defense. Now they changed it from a 43 to a 34. They're a one-gap 34 team under Wade Phillips. Has done a great job, as he always does in the first year of a new situation for him. But the big story is offensively. You're talking about statistically what comes down to points scored. You talk about one of the 2 best teams. And as a matter of fact, the number 1 and number 2 teams are playing each other this week, which typically does not happen in Week 14, but it is. And the way that Sean McVay has managed Jared Goff, the quarterback, I mean, he's not asking him to do a lot compared to what the Eagles do with Carson Wentz, but he's not turning it over. He's smart. He's athletic. He's not real big physically now. Now, he's 6'4", maybe 220, but he has a running game. You know, Todd Gurley now under Sean McVay is up near almost 2 yards per carry. Last year, it looked like he had fallen off completely, didn't know where his career was going. Now you're talking about one of the best running backs in the league. And the other thing is, guys, when is the last time we talked about the Rams and having a good offensive line in the same sentence? Well, you know what? They've got a good offensive line for the first time in probably a decade, and they've got a good group of young receivers. They're just very well coached. And Jeff Fisher, the former head coach, his utter refusal to really develop an offense really cost him his job. Let's be honest about it.
Adam, since you mentioned Wade Phillips, what do you think he might try to do to slow down Carson Wentz? I mean, obviously stopping Aaron Donald, that's going to be a big part of the Eagles' game plan. But what do you think Phillips will zone in on this week to try and neutralize the Philly offense?
I think what you got to do is you have to get physical with Alshon Jeffrey, who in the second half has really taken off. I think last week I thought the Seahawks did get physical with him. And I know Carson Wentz missed a couple throws in the first half, actually 3 in the first half in particular where he was off. But I think that's the thing is when you let Alshon Jeffrey get off the line, he's probably going to win because you're talking about 6'2.5", big frame, big catch radius, and that's been the problem for defenses. So I think Wade Phillips I think Tremaine Johnson's got to match up on him. He's big. He's about 6'1.5". He's by far their tallest corner and their best corner. They're not very deep a corner. They're not great at safety. Yeah, but they've been efficient. They're not giving up a lot of big plays. But I think in this game, if they protect Carson Wentz, and this is a big deal here, by the way, you're probably not going to see Connor Barwin with a broken forearm. He probably will not play. I think that's going to impact. They've got a 4th-round pick who's a rookie, Ebucom, 4th-rounder. I think he'll have to fill in. They're not deep there. I think the Eagles have to spread them out a little bit, and that to me is the way that you beat them. But Wade Phillips, his defenses in the first year historically have been terrific, and there's no exception right here with the Rams.
Samson Ebucom, keep an eye on him. He wears number 50. Adam Caplan with us, NFL Insider Adam Caplan. You can follow him on Twitter, Caplan NFL. So you mentioned Todd Gurley a minute ago, Adam, and the one thing I thought about is the fact that the Rams have been using a lot of the screen game to Gurley. How effective is that for them, and how much of a problem will that be for the Philadelphia Eagles if Goff and Gurley hook up in the screen game?
Yeah, it's interesting, Pete. So when you look at the situation, this is incredible. Now, if Robert Woods has a bad shoulder, he's very questionable this week to play. Today's their last day of practice for the week. I mean, if he doesn't play, and we've seen this in recent weeks, Todd Gurley gets more involved in the pass game, in the screen game, and he does such a great job of setting up his blockers and being patient And that's really been the story here. And as a matter of fact, if this continues to keep up, the more Robert Woods misses time, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Todd Gurley leads them in receptions this season. It's pretty incredible the turnaround he's made in his career. He's always had the talent, but it's been all about coaching. I think with both teams, folks, it's the big reason why both teams are headed to the playoffs. We're talking about the Rams and the Eagles. Coaching, number one, folks. You can't be this good without exceptional coaching, and I think both teams have gotten it.
Yeah, we talked yesterday, Adam, about the possibility of McVay starting a trend of all these teams that need head coaches looking for like the new boy genius guys. You might see guys who don't have a great pedigree or some long resume get an opportunity because of what he's doing out there.
Yeah, in fact, he only called plays for the first time last season with the Redskins, and he did a great job. He technically signed his contract and had not even turned 31 with the Rams, and he's 31 now. But it's really incredible. And I think this group, I just did my podcast for vsporto.com earlier today, and I do mention during that podcast, because I'm looking at head coaching candidates, that's the trend now, that teams want offensive play callers as head coaches. You always have to be careful because they have to be leaders first, play callers second. John DeFilippo, the Eagles quarterbacks coach, almost certainly will get offers to be offensive coordinator. And by the way, his contract is up. So the Eagles, unlike last year, they cannot block him. And I think he's going to get a chance to be head coach in 18. I think talking to people around the league, he'll be targeted heavily. I think he'll probably get a minimum of 3 to 4 interviews if he's interested, because I think when you look at it, this guy's got the pedigree. He called plays for the Browns a couple years ago, called plays at San Jose State. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be heavily in the band.
Hey, Adam, I'd like to get your take on how far Aguilar has come and what he has meant to this offense and Carson Wentz, the third down numbers that he has put up this year. I mean, you can look at Jeffrey. He's kind of the guy, and Ertz has had a great year in the running game, but he's kind of an unheralded part of why this offense has flourished.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So in talking to the Eagles, Mike Rowe, the receivers coach, who ironically got a job with the Rams last season as a passing game coordinator over DeFilippo. It's funny, and both of them are now working for the Eagles. But what's interesting here is that when you look at this situation with Nelson Aguilar, when Mike Rowe came in, his number one thing that he told people with the Eagles is he wanted to get Nelson Aguilar's confidence back. And that has happened. And that's that, because remember, last year at this time, Nelson was actually sat down by the Eagles for a game. He was completely lost mentally. And look at where he is now. This has probably been one of the best stories that the Eagles have had this season, no question about it. And you look at Brandon Brooks last year with the anxiety. We know he's taking medication for it. Think about all the things the Eagles have had to overcome this season, not just the loss of the left tackle, Jason Peters, and obviously the middle linebacker, Jordan Hicks, and Darren Sproles, but just how players have made strides, not just by what coaches have done, just getting over some things. It's been quite the story, and one of the big reasons why the Eagles have bounced back this season.
Hey, Adam, Mike and I talked about Aaron Donald and where he lines up. Do you see him lining up over Big V? And if that's the case, I'm kind of concerned. Should the Eagles get some help there and chip and find a way to slow him down?
He's an interior player as a three technique, so I don't know how much they're going to play him on the outside. I know they move him around a lot, but if by chance that happens, they're going to have to double team. The thing that the Eagles did not do a good job last week was they let Big V out there on an island too much. Now, Doug Peterson's kind of like Andy Reid. He doesn't like using – he doesn't want to start max protecting if he doesn't have to. But you'll see the secret to the Eagles' success this season is unbalanced lines and doing things that are a little bit unorthodox occasionally, and it seems to have worked. But I'll tell you what, you saw with the speed rushers last week, Vaitai did not handle them well. Frank Clark got him. He's a power and speed guy. You saw what Michael Bennett did. So that would be a concern of mine. That's probably right now the biggest concern is that for the Eagles' offense is the defensive line of the Rams and their blitz packages against the Eagles' offensive line, because they did not pick it up well last week.
Yeah, and Wade Phillips is going to want to blitz, and he's going to bring guys. We're talking with Adam Caplan here about Eagles and Rams, and do you think that Darren Sproles is going to come back? Because I know he made an appearance out there, and there's some issues about Darren Sproles where he said, that's it, I'm done, there's nothing left in the tank. Do you think that he's going to come back to the Eagles next season?
Well, he's not under contract, so it's just a matter of what he can do. He had ACL surgery, and my understanding is it actually went pretty well. One person close to the situation said that in the beginning he was thinking, no, this is it, he's retired, and then he's got second thoughts. And part of it obviously is at 34 years old, he would love to get a ring, and he sees what's happening here with the Eagles. But by the way, you talked about this. Mike brought up the screen game. The Eagles have absolutely no screen game. That's been missing. Although I think with Wendell Smallwood, you could have done a lot with that, but he's not a factor anymore. I think right now you have to look at it and say, what are they trying to accomplish right now? You know, what are they trying to accomplish today? So that's one thing. That screen game, I think they have to take a look at it right now. Oh, by the way, so I just got something from the Rams. Right now they're going to call – Connor Barron did a little bit today. They're going to call him questionable. So I guess he's got an outside shot to play. But remember, he's got to be able to protect that broken forearm.
Hey, Adam, with Sproles being out, do you think that has opened the door for the Eagles to run the ball more? In other words, if he was healthy, would they be running the ball as much with Sproles healthy? So some people have suggested him being hurt actually made them run the ball more.
You know, it's funny. My prediction was that the Eagles would run the ball more when Sproles went on injured reserve because, remember, they were a big shotgun offense with Sproles. And the pass-run ratio was heavily weighted to the pass, where now they have balance. But I didn't see this kind of balance. I mean, no one could have seen that coming. But it's been fascinating to see how they've changed things up a little bit. I don't think there's any question. I mean, you just don't have that explosiveness. And you know, he's such a small back at 5'5.5". It really changes your offense when you come in, when you put him in the game. The Eagles become more of a passing offense. I don't think there's any question how that has changed. That's probably been one of the biggest changes of this offense that has impacted them becoming a balanced team is the loss of Darren Sproles. It's interesting how things have changed.
Yeah, and we know the run game's got Ajayi now. They didn't have him at the beginning of the year. Blunt, Corey Clement. How big of a factor is the run game this week against L.A.? Is that something that you think they need to establish?
I think balance. Doug is hell-bent. Peterson's hell-bent on this balance. I don't think there's any question about it. However, though, last week, I thought that got away from them. I thought they were way too heavily going toward the run in the first half of the last game, which typically teams throw more in the first half than they run it. I don't know why Doug was so conservative. I think that's got to change here. I think you have to come out aggressive against the Rams. And the other thing is I'm out in Los Angeles, guys. I cannot believe, because typically Los Angeles is so big you can't really see fans of the other team. There are a ton of Eagles fans here, and I'm very fascinated to see Sunday how many of them show up at the L.A. Coliseum.
Hey, Adam, who do you think should get the majority of the carries at running back? Because it seems to me that's a tightrope situation for Doug Peterson, given the personalities of Jay Ajayi and then the contract situation for LeGarrette Blount and things that he said to him when LeGarrette Blount came to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think the problem here is that the coaches still have not figured out quite how to use Jay Ajayi. I think it's generally when you make a decision to trade for a guy in season, it's difficult. You would have rather traded for Ajayi the offseason where you could learn the player a little bit. I think it's been a work in progress. I don't think it's there yet on how to use him. You saw last week he had more snaps than Blunt, but the carry total was very close. What they need to get out of Ajayi are explosive runs. They're getting them occasionally. They need to get more out of it. I think that thing's a work in progress, which hopefully will get solved by the playoffs.
We're talking with Adam Caplan, NFL Insider. Follow him on Twitter at CaplanNFL. The Eagles secondary, Adam, I guess has been the surprise of the season. We were commenting the other day that even if Sidney Jones was healthy at this stage of the season, who would get bounced from the Eagles secondary? So I would assume that they're not rushing him back and probably won't see him all season long based on how good they've been, but they should be tested this week.
Well, Mike, you should never rush a player back. So I know from talking to the Eagles privately about it, the word with them was they were going to do the right thing, which means he would have to show them that he's ready, and he's not. And really right now, you make a really good point. Think about it. Even if Sidney Jones could come back for the playoffs, he's certainly not going to come back for the regular season. Even if he could, you're looking at Darby, who's got to start, Jalen Mills, who deserves to start. Patrick Robinson, their third corner, has done a great job. I mean, you could give Sidney Jones the fourth corner job, and because he's tall and you'd like to have size at corner. Rasul Douglas gives you that as their fourth corner. And you got Jalen Watkins who could play corner or safety. I mean, you just don't really need him. Now, going into the next offseason, then they'll have decisions to make because Jalen Mills has done nothing to lose the job. This is a good thing to have. Remember, they didn't know that they were going to have Ronald Darby when they drafted Sidney Jones. They didn't know that Jalen Wilson would make this jump. They didn't know that Patrick Robinson could even play anymore. No one knew that. This is the value of coaching, and I don't think the coaches are giving enough credit. The coaches on both sides of the football, Corey Unlin, who I've criticized before, he's done a phenomenal job this season, one of the unsung heroes for this coaching staff.
Well, and how many times routinely, Adam, if we talked about a game or something, we talk about Nolan Carroll not turning his head, being out of position. Bradley Fletcher, same thing. I mean, the list of guys they've brought in here really since Asante Samuel, I guess. I mean, they have had just a rut of corners who couldn't play.
Yeah, in fact, that's where Howie Roseman had really missed. They've not developed their own corners at all since Roseman's been the general manager in 2010. They kept signing guys from other teams, players that they drafted didn't work out, and now Mills is one of their own. No question about it. They did trade for Ronald Darby, but, I mean, you talk about a guy that's going to turn 24. Russell Douglas is their own. Sidney Jones is their own. Jalen Watkins they did draft, although they wound up cutting him, but he's back. So that's good. They're finally starting to develop their own corners, and that's what you got to do.
Adam, speaking of Roseman, do you think Joe Douglas might be at the top of the list for some GM openings out there?
Here's the thing. This is his first full year with the season for the Eagles. Remember, he came in after the 2016 draft. I think when you look at Joe Douglas, he really had to learn the pro game. He was a college guy, college scouting director. So you have to be careful. He did this for the Bears. He's learning the pro game more. I think he needs at least one more year. I'm not saying he won't get an interview. It's probably would behoove him or a team to give him a little bit more time. But, yeah, he's a great evaluator. He and Howie Roseman are aligned where they have the same thinking. I know that talking to those guys, they believe in the offensive line, defensive line until you build it up. And they've done a great job. And you have to give Howie Roseman credit. He's gotten a lot of criticism over the years, but he gets it. And I think his legacy will be with his quarterback. I think when you look back on his career, all the mistakes and issues that he's had, he's finally got it right. And when you get it right at the quarterback position, you're probably going to be good for years to come.
Yeah, everything looks better. Adam Caplan with us. How about Jim Schwartz or John DeFilippo for head coaching vacancies? Because we remember the block they had put on DeFilippo at one point, but now Jim Schwartz, DeFilippo being mentioned. Yeah,
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think DeFilippo will be a little bit ahead of Jim Schwartz because I think the word is around the league, they see DeFilippo as a quarterback developer, and they're going to be up to 9. I've actually mentioned this before, but I could give you a little bit more in depth. I have the league potentially up to 9 head coaching openings.
Wow.
And I've got about 19 to 20 head coaching candidates on my list. And if you listen to my over the weekend, you can listen to my podcast on vsporto.com. And I talk about this, and I've mentioned DeFilippo and Schwartz. The thing about Schwartz is who is going to be his offensive coordinator candidate, and that to me is very important for these defensive coaches. But the good thing about Schwartz is he's been a head coach before, and by the rules, you can't block any of these guys to interview for a head coaching job. So that's also going to be an issue for the playoffs because the deeper the Eagles go in the playoffs, the harder it will be for these, especially DeFilippo as a quarterback's coach. And it's just we always see this. The marquee teams in the National Football League, and you have to say the Eagles are one, the coaches are always going to be targeted by teams who have had coaching openings. This always happens.
We know that Eagle fans traveled well. You just made reference to it. It's a 90,000-seat stadium out there. Do we anticipate a smattering of green, a big contingent of green? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this. My flight Thursday morning, coming from Philly, I had a stopover in Phoenix. There must have been like 50 people that got on from Phoenix that were Eagles fans.
Huh.
I've seen them everywhere. I was at the Eagles Hotel last night. It was interesting. The whole bar, I couldn't find a Ram fan. They were all Eagle fans. Okay, this is, by the way, I'm in Orange County. I'm about 10 minutes from the Eagles Hotel. Listen. You mentioned 90,000 fans. I mean, how about this? The Rams are, because they're expecting a huge national media presence, they're going to have an auxiliary press box because they can't handle this big of a crowd. They have not had this big of a crowd for the media at all this season. And it's going to be crazy. Think about it. Week 14, you typically don't have two of the NFL's best teams playing each other, and that's going to happen. And this has big divisional implications because the Rams' record clearly against the Seahawks. Remember, the Rams play at the Seahawks next week. Then you just take the conference record. If the Eagles lose this game, it'd have to be tied against the Rams, and the Rams would have the tiebreaker. So this thing, folks, you could see why this game is hyped. And then how about this thing? This came out a couple hours ago. I was not even aware of this. So Fox is going to hire. This was actually not on The Onion. This is actually true.
Right.
Fox is actually hiring actors because they're very concerned about
to play.
They're very concerned about Eagle fans being there because look what the Eagle fans did to that Charger game.
Yeah,
they overtook that game, and you know what's the crazy thing? The StubHub Center where the Chargers play is only half an hour away from the LA Coliseum. It's crazy.
Yeah, we saw a tweet, Adam, from our friend of the show, Kevin Nagandi, that said his cousin was getting a rental car in L.A. and asked where he's from, and he said Philly. And the guy at the rental counter said 85% of their business this weekend is coming from Philadelphia. So, yeah, it could be very similar to the Chargers game. Different size stadium, of course, but there could be a lot of Eagle Green out there this Sunday. Yeah,
in fact, when I go to the game Sunday, I probably will get there super early because I want to check out the crowd outside and see if they're tailgating and all that. And think about it, you know big of just a Philadelphia contingent people who live out here. This is a very transient area, Los Angeles. It's kind of like Miami. So really, and remember, the Rams have been gone for 20 years. So what kind of fan base could they possibly have? Wouldn't shock me if half the crowd's Eagles, but we'll see. I would expect 20,000 to 30,000 Eagle fans there. It wouldn't shock me at all.
NFL insider Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL. Your key to the game, Adam. What do you see in the game? Who do you like?
Yeah, the Eagles need to get off to better starts. First time really all year that they did not get off to a good start last week at Seattle. And I think they get off to a good start. I think they're going to get up early. And I think that the Eagles will not have a major problem with the Ram offense, which has been fantastic this season. I like the Eagles in this game, 27-17.
27-17 Eagles. And don't forget, we've got Pick the Perfect Score coming up. In 6 minutes, you can win $600 if you know the score. Not you, Adam, the listeners, if they know the score of this week's Eagles game. Thanks, my friend. Enjoy the game.
Good stuff, Adam.
Guys, thank you.